Hi, happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday night poetry. I'm Nancy Murphy in Los Angeles. Thank you, Kai Coggin, for this invitation to read tonight and for all that you do for us. And thank you to the Wednesday night poetry community for listening. I've been enjoying being part of the open mic events, and I look forward to watching all of your videos every week and then scrambling to find a poem to fit the next weekly theme. It's been a lot of fun and some really wonderful poetry. I've been writing poetry now for about 20 years. I have done some other genres from time to time, but I always come back to poetry. And especially so during these last COVID months or years, whatever it is now, there's been such an abundance of poetry classes and readings and open mics online. It's really been great. And I feel like poetry is even a more central part of my life right now. I read it a lot more and write it a lot more and listen to it. So it's like religion for me now. I write primarily about love and loss in various forms. I'm going to read 4 poems today that are a bit varied in tone and topic. These are all unpublished pieces and more recently written. I post all my published work on my website, nancymurphywriter.com. I'm also working on a first book with Trisha Faye Hefner's Poetry Salon. She has a really wonderful book building class there, so hopefully one day I'll have a book to share as well. I'm going to start off with a seasonal poem, if you will. I'm still writing quite a bit about something that happened a long time ago, but this is a milestone year, and those always carry a little bit more emotional weight, at least for me. So this one is called Love and Death in November. November makes sense as a month for death. Things are going that way anyway. The gravity, hard to resist. My mother didn't say goodbye when she died, and I don't remember now the last words we spoke on the phone, miles apart. She heard my newborn daughter's cries through the wires, never saw her face. Its perfection and beauty unsurpassed by any child ever born in the history of the world. They are all the same, children, in that distinction. My mother would have known that. I am bereft of that single gaze, my mother upon my child, to be witnessed in my transformation from daughter to mother, the very thing that bound us. It burns in me, this love and loss. Mine has now grown and gone to live the same miles away from me. Maybe she senses my bottomless longing, protects her life from me, or maybe it's just the natural order, this painful rupture of child from parent. I remember. Mine reaches out when it suits her, like a cruel ex-lover who sometimes misses you and calls knowing you will always love them, that being needed is a gift they are bestowing. How being her mother makes me feel like I am my mother, and how feeling like I am my mother brings her back to me, fixes the broken part of our circle, a circle that keeps coming around again every November. All right, and now I'm going to switch gears to something a little more sensual, a little erotic. I'm calling it right now either In a Dream or Dreamy. I'm not sure if either of those are going to work. If you have any suggestions, just let me know. Dreamy. It always starts the same. We are somewhere. Last night it was a dinner, someone's house. I hadn't seen you in years. You looked like the last time I saw you. Boyish chest had started to barrel, waist with a hint of an impending thickening. You can't be impossibly what you were forever. It always feels the same, that pull to you like a welcome death, a blessing in the shape of a pulse, our own gravity. We let it heavy us. Then the casual bumping of limbs, deeper warmth. We seek a place to hunger, a balcony in the open but out of earshot, arouse no one. We are always watched, always afraid of being seen. Your hand on the small of my back, barely. I awake covered in a honeyed urgency, forgetting again how skinned I felt when you left. I gather the bedding around me, try to contain the ether of last night, only to feel it seep out, float up to a morning mackerel sky. All right, this next poem is called, I'm going to preface it first. In case you're not a tea drinker, the thing that makes Earl Grey tea taste like Earl Grey is bergamot. And you either love it or hate it. It's called All That Bergamot. We are on our way to Zion, Utah. We have stopped in Hemet at a Starbucks. He sits in a wheelchair by the entrance, 102 degrees, no hat, he might be a vet. Inside the cool cafe, awaiting my usual, a perfect tea latte, English breakfast tea, not Earl Grey, all that bergamot. Soy milk, even though no one drinks that anymore. One Splenda, the artificial habit that may kill me one day. I decide to give him some money and to ask him a question. My heart pounds as we walk back to the car. It's an unspoken plan. The handoff of cash is awkward. It drops into his lap. I fear close contact. Pausing briefly, letting myself take in his sunburnt, grizzled face, I say, "What's your name?" His confused expression tells me he is a man who is used to being nameless. He says, "What's my name?" I turn, hurry on to the car, a little flushed. Brian stands waiting, holding the door open for me, a habit he can't break, a habit that makes me impatient sometimes. I am ungrateful that way. And then I hear a voice calling out behind me, "Floyd. My name is Floyd." All right, and this last poem is a little longer, so I'll make this my final poem. This is related to a challenge that my partner and I faced at about the worst time of COVID in Los Angeles. So it was a very difficult time, but we're good now. All right. Manual for handling a catastrophe during a pandemic. First, don't exaggerate. You are not the first person to get bad news. His heart needed repair. It had to be opened. This is not a love poem. Second, when he gets home from the hospital, drive to CVS every day for 9 days. Hold your breath when you're inside so you don't get COVID and bring it home, because if he gets that, you can stop reading right now. Third, or is it fifth, make a Post-it note that says good morning and draw a smiley face with curly hair. Sixth, put it next to a white coffee cup, the kind that usually goes with a saucer, which is a shape no one uses for coffee anymore. It's like coffee in the 50s in your kitchen with a neighbor. Seventh, there are no neighbors now. We can't talk to anyone outside our immediate house unless they're daughters, but they can't be here either. 12th night. Anyway, the coffee cup is for the handful of pink and white pills he has to take. Write that down. Fourth, define catastrophe. If you tiptoe in the night just to listen for proof of life, it's a catastrophe. If you see him from the hallway asleep in the chair where he was bravely watching TV in the afternoon and it suddenly makes you weep, it's a catastrophe. Fifth, don't tell everyone. It's boring. And it makes you boring. It makes you like everyone else. Besides, everyone else has their own pandemic catastrophe, and I am not a good listener. Sixth, don't forget to bathe once in a while, but don't bother to wash your hair. It looks the same, clean or dirty. Seventh, no one is looking at you. 10th, Don't hesitate to call. Hesitate to call. No one can help you anyway. Think of a friend or maybe a sister you can cry to on the phone, but you won't have time for that. Eighth, don't think about the time before the catastrophe. Don't remember that you two were doing pretty well, considering. Ninth, think about the day he handed you a piece of paper with the diagnosis. 15th, the paper was a map of our lives for the next 6 months. What it didn't say is if you would survive. Third, have some fun with this. Think of as many words as you can using the letters that spell caretaker. Taken carefully, taking in, taking on, water, waiting to be taken, cared, couldn't care, wanted to not care, carefully taking off, clothes, even socks, slow down. 18th, be careful there, careless, carelessly taking care. 19th, afraid to care, afraid to stop caring, afraid to stop, afraid to. 20th, be afraid. Okay. All right. Well, that's my time, and I appreciate you listening, and I look forward to hearing more of your work in the coming weeks. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kai.